Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream Podcast,
where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media.
I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of Think Now. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the New Mainstream Podcast. Today, joined by someone who's been shaping the multicultural media space for years, Randy Gudiel, SVP of Media Director at Orci. Over a decade of experience, Randy has played a key role in developing strategic, cultural, relevant media campaigns resonating with diverse audiences. We're going to talk about journey in media, evolution of Hispanic marketing, and hopefully dive a little bit into the future of media strategy. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Mario, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's kick it off talking a little bit about your journey. I mean, you've been in multicultural marketing for a little while. Have you always been in multicultural, or where did you start your career?
Yeah, so let's see. I started 17 years ago. So I think this year is going to be 17 years of working in advertising and marketing. I actually started in general market, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So I did about, let's just say about 7 years in general market. I was blessed to start on a national automotive account, so got my feet wet in media. And honestly, I media wasn't my first choice. Everyone in painted this whole advertising very glamorous picture of advertising, and media was not exactly something that I always dreamt about. Right. But I kind of stumbled upon it and fell in love with it. I did 7 years in general market. I transitioned over to doing some freelance for a couple of years. And one thing I did want to do is going into it, I did want to go into Hispanic advertising. It wasn't multicultural back then, right? It was Hispanic marketing. It was back then when it was like niche marketing, right? And so I knew I wanted to get into it. I got the opportunity, did a little bit of freelancing. I became a permalancer for a while at Casanova, out in California. Spent a couple years working on retail, working on CPG brands, a couple government accounts. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I knew that was my calling. I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and that's really where my journey in multicultural started. It obviously the industry changed throughout, but I got in right at the right where it was all about translating commercials,
Yeah.
from English to Spanish, and it was still at the time where there was a lot of voiceovers over commercials, right? A lot of voiceover over the work that General Market did. But that was exciting. I mean, the that was exciting, and then from there, I continued into a small shop out in San Diego called Motivate. Did some more multicultural work there, beyond just Hispanic. Spent about 5 years there, and then just found my home in at Orci, where
What led you to like multicultural? Because you were in general market for a while. Like what,
right.
or Hispanic? What made you want to make the jump there? Did you work on some Hispanic campaigns at general market, or you just kind of knew about
You
the
know
trend?
what? Interestingly enough, like I was the only uh, person of color, at the agency.
Yeah.
So I did work with Hispanic agencies, and
Oh yeah,
oftentimes,
we got a guy. Come here.
yeah, we often had those questions of like, hey, does this script sound okay to you? How will you translate, X? And so I'd get those small little requests. And I it did feel like I was getting, yeah, at that point it was more of like the brown person in the room. Um, and that's where I figured I was like, there's more that I can give. There's more value that I can bring to this industry. But yeah, that's where the seed was planted.
That's cool. So how long have you been at OC now?
Close to 7 years now.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and Ortiz is like, I mean, maybe you can give a little bit of history better than I can, but um, one of the first like shops on the West Coast, right? Because from Hispanic marketing
Since
perspective, it's always
1986.
Florida. Oh
Since
wow.
1986, yeah, it's pioneers in the space. We've been doing this for a very very long time, and mind you, this is, well, I was 6 back then, but it's been going on, and there's been a lot of shifts during that time. We had very strong founders. We I think from me never really worked with Norma or Hector. Like I see the what they've put into the business, right? I see it over the years, and that's something that I really love. I think I love the culture, the beliefs. These are all beliefs that align with this who I am as a person, as an individual. And that's really what I wanted, right? I wanted to find a place that really aligned with my cultural values. The agency's cultural values align perfectly with who I am, what I want to do, how I see myself, how I carry myself as an individual, and then what I give back to Orsi and our clients.
Yeah, and especially now, right? I mean, it just feels good to be
Oh,
doing work that
100%. Yeah. I mean,
that,
we're,
that
we're, we're, we're in a time where it feels like it's a safe place to be there,
right.
right? It's our safe place.
So talking a little bit like you mentioned, right? I mean, Orsi is a pioneer. Um, you've experienced some changes like in the multicultural Latino marketing. Um, from your perspective, how has multicultural or Latino marketing changed in the past several years that you've been in it?
Oh man, it's changed a lot. I mean, it was a big switch from general market to Hispanic because I was used to working with high seven-figure budgets. And I quickly got a reality check when I came in, and it was like a low five figures, and you're like, whoa, is this the monthly budget? Is this your entire annual budget? And that was a big like shock to me, right? Like that was, I honestly, it was hard for me to really understand. Mind you, though, when I was in general market, I was part of working on those overall budgets, so I knew what those Hispanic agencies would get, right? Like I knew what the African American agencies would get, and there were small budgets, and you're talking about National Automotive. Like it's big, but you were getting like less than 5% of the overall budget. So that was the biggest, shock for me. But the biggest shift, I think,
5% for both African American and
yeah,
Hispanic, or
for
oh, so
both
combined?
combined,
And just
combined.
so people know, like most people don't know, we have Black consumers in the U.S. make up 10%, right?
Yeah,
And Latino consumers are up to 20%. So you're
correct,
talking 30% getting 5%
correct,
of media dollars,
correct.
which is insane.
But it was niche marketing, right? Like it was very small. So and Hispanic got more than African American back then. So you think about the 5% that was divided between two big opportunities, right? Market opportunities. And that was hard for me to really wrap myself around that. You know, having to be a little bit more creative, having to do more with less. But I saw that as an opportunity because at the end of the day, like that pushed me to be more strategic. That pushed me to think outside of the box, start thinking of like, how do we make these dollars stretch? um, and it wasn't easy. If you think about it, like we didn't have the amount of media or available content that we have now, and that was one of the biggest, I'd say, the biggest shifts too during that time. That we were working with the Univisions de Telemundos, and then we then had we work with smaller publications, and these were all Spanish language publications. It wasn't really about being in culture. It was just being about Spanish. And if it was a Spanish site, it was a Spanish network. We wanted it. We wanted to own it. We wanted to be part of it. Now we have a lot more. Now we can say like, let's lead with culture versus let's lead with language.
So we have a lot more options, but how about that gap? Is it still there? Are you still seeing this disparity of 5% for black, or has it gotten better? I guess.
It's gone better, but I think we take 10 steps forward and then we take 10 steps backwards, right?
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that at the beginning of the year, we're all excited. We get that budget and it's, we're close to like the high six figures, close to seven figures. By the end of Q1, that budget is cut. And so that's the biggest gap that I think at the end of the day, like brands want to invest, but it's the first place they cut. And that hasn't changed. That has not changed. I think that's the first thing to go in a budget when there are cuts, and the
Is
cuts
is
are
is is the is the multicultural or Latino media, is that's what you're talking about? So like general market stays, but they're cutting the Latino budget, or
I think it depends on the brand. There's cuts across the board, but the one that goes first would be I'd say multicultural. Um,
which
but
is
I
frustrating, right? Because like again, I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to you, but for our listeners, you know, 100% of the growth in this country is coming from diverse audiences,
Of course,
like
100%.
literally, like, and we're talking about his, this is not, this is inclusive of immigration, but
Hmm.
really being driven by Hispanic births,
Right,
right?
right. And I think we're gonna see more of that,
Yeah.
this year, towards the end of this year, when we start seeing brands scaling back on
Well, some initial
investing.
numbers are already out, right? So,
Yeah.
because I was curious about this whole Target fiasco. Um, I don't know about you, but like my family, we were big Target fans when I heard the news that they're cutting back
Hmm.
on D and I and investing in diversity.
Hmm.
We went from it went from our number one spend to $0.
Yeah.
And so I was curious last week. I was talking to someone from Netflix who same thing, her family number one spend. So I'm like, okay, is this an actual thing? Sure enough, Forbes published 9% decline.
That's
So
the impact. That's the impact.
that's
That's
the
the impact
impact.
that
I
we
mean, we're
have.
talking 2 months,
Right. Right.
so, and then on the flip side, Costco, double digit growth,
Hmm.
right? So we're talking about these numbers, these 5%. There's an outweighed impact in terms of not reaching these audiences, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's and they were you're talking about 60 days, right? From when all this started, like 2 months ago, and everyone asked like, how long is this gonna go? Is this boycotts gonna have stay, and is it really gonna impact them? Yeah, like we have strong buying power.
Yeah. And it's I mean, I think someone like Target is particularly difficult for people, and I mean especially for me,
Hmm.
because I mean I've been doing this podcast for a while. We've actually had Target on, so listen to that podcast because you'll see the 180 turn they took. I mean the
Hmm.
podcast was fantastic and talked to how they're. I mean it was all about diversity, and but I think what consumers are upset about Target is that we felt like they were really about it, and it was. And you feel like someone deceived you, right? Like the minute things get shaky, they pulled the rug.
Yeah.
um, so I think that's a testament to, and better than anyone, if you're going to invest in multicultural consumers and growth, you got to be consistent. You got to be consistent, because consumers are savvy, and I think the impact for Target is really gonna be a case study for us to use for
Hmm.
clients of what
Hmm.
not to do.
and that's one of the biggest brands, right? That's been affected right now. But there's, there are smaller brands that are going to take the biggest hit. I think Target will survive. I mean, that's just in my opinion. Is it a big hit? Yes, but they still,
They'll survive, but I see them trying. My bet is in the next couple months we're gonna see them try to mitigate some of this
Mhm.
because I think there's already grumblings about, are they gonna come out and say, "Hey, we're back with D&I"? No, but they're gonna try to rebrand it and do something.
Well, and again, I don't know too much of the details. I just know that they tried, like in the first 30 days they were trying to partner up with Hispanic, small businesses to kind of say like, hey, we're still here for the community. But that just went over our people's heads. Like it's still more like, no, we know what you did. Like the pain's still there. I think the damage is done. But
Well, and another story, I had someone out, this previous guest to you, Maribel Lara.
mhm,
She it was chief of staff for VaynerMedia, and now she just launched her own consultancy. She was talking about a black women-owned brand that was in Walmart. Incredible, right? I mean, you're
mhm,
talk like if you're a retail brand and you want to get somewhere, Walmart. When they announced Walmart that they were scaling, taking away their DNI, she made the decision as a small business owner to take her product off of Walmart shelf, which was like 90% of her revenue. Um, Took that hit, but she announced it on social media why she was doing it, sticking to her values. She made up all her sales and more from direct to consumer,
yeah.
which I mean, to me, that's incredible. It shows the power of diverse consumers, right? And that's not to say that 100% of people online that were supporting her were diverse. I'm sure a large amount were, but I think even, to non-diverse consumers, that authenticity resonated with them and they're still supporting her, which I thought was incredible.
That's the flip side of the impact that we have, right? Like there's so much loyalty. Like she had loyal consumers, I'm sure. And now you take that small gesture that she did, or that small like step that she took into saying like, I'm gonna stand up for myself, my brand, my community, and in return, look at what happened to her business.
Right. Right.
And those are things that big brands, I think, my point that I was making earlier is that someone like Target, like, you know they're big enough where they can take this hit, try to figure out a way to make up for the 30%, 40%, whatever, wherever we're at in 6 months, and flip it. That could be anywhere from raising prices, that could be anywhere from, catering specifically to the people that are here. I mean, my target here, like, I also live in a very, like, you know uh, we're the minority for sure in this community, but it's still packed. I mean, you still see the parking lot pretty full. Um, so I think some brands will survive. Some brands will have to just adjust and pivot, but it's going to be a hard comeback for them.
So you have an interesting perspective in that you worked for General Market Media and now you're I mean you're 100% focused on Hispanic.
Mhm.
How do you approach it differently? Like how do you approach Hispanic media? Because you were mentioning before, now there's a lot more options.
Yeah.
You have social, you have influencers, you have programmatic. I mean, how are you approaching targeting Hispanics online differently than you would, let's say, general market, and given those budget constraints that you were talking about?
Yeah, with so much opportunity, I think it's really aligning ourselves with the right media channels. I'm big on making sure that we're investing in Hispanic, in minority owned media outlets. That's how, you talk about the example of Walmart. That's where we start, because this is a partner that understands what we're trying to accomplish, right? Understands who we're trying to reach. This is not to discredit, bigger media partners from being able to reach our audiences, but at the end of the day, like, who knows our consumer better? Like we do, right? Like we do, and that's just a starting point. The I love the fact that there's a lot, and I say a lot more options for us nowadays. And it's not just from a media partner, it's also from technology, it's also from data, it's also from um, those trusted voices, those influencers that allow us to really get our messaging in front of the right people. But for us, it's not just about putting media in Spanish language, putting media in um, outlets that only appeal to Hispanic, right? Because we live in two worlds, man. We live in two worlds. We actually sometimes live in three worlds in some cases, right? We have multi-generational households, we have multiracial households. So it's not just Hispanics that we're talking about. Like we're just talking about like this dynamic that things have gone very different from when I first started. But targeting Hispanics, like you have to lead with your insight. You have to make sure that you have that insights. I actually just recently um, wrote this piece talking about data and being able to leverage data and understanding data. But what's changed from before to now is that before it used to be all about data. Whatever MRI told you, whatever Simmons told you, you just led with it. You went with it. It would say that, you would ask questions about, Spanish language preferred versus English preferred, right? Now that's kind of out the door. Like it's okay to still ask those questions, but that's not how you're going to plan your media, because we speak two, three, four languages at a time, and then you layer in on top of that the younger audiences, where it gets a lot more complex to try to reach our younger Hispanic consumers.
You were mentioning culture first, which I totally believe in, and we do a lot of research around that. Can you give me an example of like of a media campaign that led with culture, not language necessarily, that you see as that you hold up as like, yeah, this is how you should do it.
Yeah. I'd say one that makes a lot of sense, and for a lot of reasons, it's this our Honda Stage program. We work with Honda, and we have this music centric music program that the goal is to reach young music lovers. Right. This program is not about selling vehicles. This program is not about driving sales. This program is about leaning in on this one passion point that brings everything. And we know that music, the language of music is universal, right? You can be singing in Spanish, but you are reaching the masses. So we're taking music, we're taking this passion point to reach all audiences. And by default, you start to lean in on these subgenres, you start to lean on into these artists that appeal to a broad group, and then without us really segmenting and saying, hey, this Latin artist is going to, we're going to leverage them to reach our Hispanic audience. It's like, this Latin artist is amazing. They, they have a broad audience. We know how to reach consumers, and by default, you start looking at the numbers, and they're reaching everyone. They're just great at what they do, and they just happen to be Hispanic, right? Look at the impact that corridos has had in the industry, right? The cross, the crossing over of cultures, the crossing over of genres, the crossing over of fans. Like you go to Coachella, and you see us there. You go to Coachella and you see all these different, subgenres that are emerging. And so we took music as the center of this program and diversified it in a way where we didn't have to say we need we're trying to reach black audiences, we're trying to reach Asian audiences, we're trying to reach Latinos. It's just a music is what brings everyone. And honestly, that I love this program a lot because this is what we need right now. We need to have programs that are bringing people together, not separating us and saying black artists will only reach black people, Latin artists will only reach Latinos, right? So that's one that I feel is doing doing it organically without having to focus on segmenting our approach.
Yeah, and I love that you brought Honda. I mean, we worked together. Some of my favorite research that we've done is with Orci and Honda. I mean, just such great insights, and I'm always citing them on the podcast. I think we've won some awards with you all, some David Ogilvy awards for insights. Um, I'm curious, like, what, we work with a lot of companies. You've worked General Market. What is it about Honda and their company culture like that they I feel like they get it. They do everything right. They check all the boxes. They're investing consistently over time among Latinos. Like, what is it about Honda versus some other big brands or smaller brands that don't get it? Like, because you interact with this client, so I'm curious. What is it? What are some things like? Hey, this is X, Y, and Z about Honda's culture that they really get the importance of Hispanic consumers.
Yeah, I think you answered that question yourself. Like that the they're consistent. They're consistent. They understand the importance of and the power of multicultures, not just Hispanic. If you think of the investment across the board, like they understand, um, the consumer. Um, and the other thing is that they also lean on their partner agencies to be able to bring this to life. That's very important, man. I think that's something that a lot of brands lack of leaning in, or oftentimes they don't have multicultural agencies, right? They have general market agencies with diverse talent, that are behind the scenes doing the work. Almost like what I was telling you, right? Like when I started in general market, like I just happened to be Hispanic. I was not a Hispanic specialist. I knew how to plan media. I just happened to be Hispanic, and I spoke Spanish. But that's one of the things that Honda does is leaning in on the agencies, their partner agencies, their specialists to, um, provide those insights needed to be able to speak year round to their different consumers.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Um, one thing I want to touch on is like, so we're, think now we got into the media space from a data perspective. I was just at the growth front um, in New York, which great to see. Like you mentioned, a lot of diverse owned media platforms. One thing that was big on everybody's mind is privacy regulations. It's like what's at the core of multicultural media, Hispanic media, is being able to reach Hispanic audiences through data. But now GDPR, CCPA, it's making it hard to target by race and ethnicity. So I'm curious, how are you within Orci kind of dealing with that, with those limitations coming down?
Yeah. One. And again, this is not a solution, but one of the things that you know it's helpful for us moving forward is looking at going back to what I said, partnering up with minority owned media partners who have the first party data that we can leverage, right? We don't we They know their consumers, they know who's coming in. They don't have to scrub that much through their data, right? Because they know their audience. And also they know the type of content that they're putting out. The reason why they're successful is because they're actually creating and curating content specifically for that, for us, for what we want. Like we're so demanding in the type of content that we want. We know exactly what we want to consume, and partnering up with these like minority owned, and in this case let's just keep it to Hispanic owned media properties, gives us the upper hand, right? Gives us the data that not everyone has access to. So you almost want to say like, hey, like 90% of our audience are Hispanic, and let's look at their behaviors based on the platforms that we own, based on who's coming day in day out to our platforms. I think that's one way to get around it without having to say like, hey, we can't leverage race or ethnicity, because at the end of the day, if you go into a broader media partner, like they're having to scrub through their data, they're having to try to leverage theirs plus third party to try to find the audiences that are Hispanic, that are Black, that are Asian. And at the end of the day, is it do they have more technology? Yeah, oftentimes they do, but it's not, again, first party data. I think is going to be king in it, and even that is going to be hard, right? Because to say like, hey, you can't do it based on ethnicity, based on gender, but they know their consumer. They know who's watching, who's spending time watching their content that they're creating, that they're curating, that they're putting on their platform.
No, that's actually that's great advice, and you're right. I talked to a lot of these agencies, many of them for the first time, right? Because on the data side, we're not buying media, and they're creating content that, and this was not just Hispanic only. I talked to Hispanic, and I mean even as targeted as South Asian media properties, right? Where they know their content and they know who's on there, and that's something that'll never go away regardless of
100%.
privacy regulations. So that's a really good point. Partner with minority owned media platforms.
And that's across the board. I mean, even you're now, obviously the data is captured with, through digital and social platforms, but radio stations, you know like they still have a strong role in our media landscape. And it doesn't have to be a Spanish radio station, but who your consumer is. Sometimes it's the talent that helps kind of drive that connection. But yeah, man, I think that's the easiest solve right now, and that's why I feel like it's super important for us to lean in on our Hispanic owned media partners, because they know us, they know who we are, they know what we want, they know how much time we spent. um it's the, I'd say again, it's hard because it's also, there's so much competition, right? And to own that category, like, it's hard. But at the end of the day, like, for some reason we still default to kind of like a general market cookie cutter approach of, we're still reaching Latinos, we're still reaching Black, and that's a whole conversation of, yes, reaching versus connecting, right?
Yeah. So last question before we go. Um, we touched on some of these things, like what we see 2025 trend wise. What's a trend that you think brands should be paying attention to in multicultural marketing for this year?
I think we talked about a couple of those already. Privacy, it's one. um AI is another one that everyone's talking about, and it's one that I feel, it's if it gets better, right? If it helps identify and represent us, if AI can start representing, multicultural better, I think that's one of the trends that we should be looking out for. um I want to say there's if you would have asked this question a couple of months ago, I'd say I have a lot more. Um, but I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming out right now. With I mean, just even making eliminating Spanish language as a recognized language. I think that that's going to be um, a big one. But mm, the language one, I think is going to be huge. Um, One of the biggest trends we're going to see is um, the biggest shift is going to be in how much we're going to be able to target consumers with Spanish. I mean, Spanish is just being eliminated in general. Um, I don't know if if at the end of the day, um, we are going to look at only being able to target consumers with English content, right? And this is where culture is going to be more important than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
The but I really do feel that um, we need to invest a little bit more in our people in our community. Um, but
My hot take with language, I agree with you. I think there's going to be, and there already is, kind of an attack on Spanish. But I think with everything, there's always a backlash. And so I think we're going to start to see people. The trend is already there that, younger generations aren't necessarily speaking Spanish. However, tying it back to Honda and music, we're seeing Spanish language music is more popular than ever. I think because there is a targeted attack against Spanish, there's going to be some young people that are going to try to pick up speaking Spanish, because whenever there's a backlash against the backlash. So I don't know. I think we're going to see kind of that come up.
yeah, that and you know what, one that did come to mind is I'm starting to see that more and more brands are not focusing anymore on those viral moments, because going viral is not necessarily something that drives sales anymore, right? I think with the different algorithms that are there, like everything's viral right now. Like everything that we're doing is viral. Everything that is being posted on TikTok is taking off. But I think it's more of, instead of chasing those big moments, like we need to start chasing like those short term like goals, right? Like those moments that really are building deeper. They're creating long-term relationships with our audiences. Everything that's community driven versus having to look for that moment of um viral, what is it, going viral. Yeah, virality, like going viral. So that's one of the biggest things I'm seeing more than brands are starting to understand, like, hey, it's not that viral moment, but how do we create smaller wins on social.
No, that's true, because I think a trend that proves your point is long form content. That's becoming more popular. And long form content by nature is not viral. Viral is short, quick,
Yep.
but now influencers are trying to put out long form, episodic,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
so that's not viral. People's attention span is getting longer.
Yeah. It's making sure that brands are just staying relevant overall.
Well, awesome. It was great having you on, Randy. This is a great conversation. Before we wrap up, if people want to connect with you, Orci, what's the best way to find you online?
Yeah, we our website is easy, orci.com, orci.com. And then all of our handles are at Orci Advertising. We love to have these type of conversations with anyone that wants to connect. But Mario, thank you so much for having me, man. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining. This was super interesting, and thank you everybody for listening. Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform.